Booster Course Wave 4 for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is here, and we're checking out all changes and differences made for the returning courses. The final race of the Boomerang Cup is Tour Singapore Speedway. Serving as a taste of the capital of Singapore, this track shows the attractions along Marina Bay, such as the infinity pool at the Marina Bay Sands, the bustling Food Street of Chinatown, the legendary Merlion statue of One Fullerton, and the otherworldly Supertrees of the gardens by the bay. So how does the most recent update differ from its mobile appearance? Let's find out. Singapore Speedway debuted as part of the Singapore Tour in 2022, with the second and third variants introduced in the 2023 Winter Tour. For the Switch version, the sights of these three routes are explored in full as the race progresses, with the final lap starting at a new spot. There are additional features to enhance the experience, like the option to glide over a part, which presents the opportunity for a difficult new shortcut, but there are many other tidbits to discover. And so we begin with the gameplay changes once again. The first lap starts on Esplanade Bridge and directs racers down the first variant's route, Singapore Speedway proper. Barriers sealing routes naturally have been cleared or turned into aerofields, so we'll ignore most of these going forward. Past Fullerton Road, the dash panel in front of the enlarged circus cannon was removed, and the ramp was reformed to serve as a multi-purpose substitute for the barriers from the tour design. After blasting off and landing on the Sky Park observation deck of the Marina Bay Sands, we see that barriers and decorations up to the first dash panel were cleared out to make room for multiple drivers, and a third dash panel was placed near the end. Also in this spot, the inner tube Goombas stay on their sides of the infinity pool now. The glide ramp at the very end was redesigned a bit, with others like this modified the same way. Along the descent, a third boost ring was placed above the float at Marina Bay, with the others adjusted slightly. The barriers in the field below and along the street circuit were removed, while an aerofield now appears on the wall for this lap only, which ends after one big turn to the left from here. Lap 2 continues with the first variant, but at the fork on Fullerton Road, the right path opens towards Chinatown, hopping onto a later point of the Singapore Speedway 3 route. Here, the barrel under the canopy was taken away. Back on the main roads already, a ramp on the left and all barriers in front were removed to be able to turn right, either by the road or through the modified corner for a shortcut. Either way, this marks the switch to the route exclusive to Singapore Speedway 2, heading towards Merlion Park to glide across the bay. The Fountains of Spectra, a light and water show, stay active a bit longer and bob up and down now. On the other side, the barriers pointing towards the passageway between the towers of the Marina Bay Sands were removed, since the perpendicular path will be available later. The ramp inside the corridor was removed also, but tricks are possible still. A simpler gate with a starting line marks the surprise start of Lap 3, similar to N64 Calamari Desert. Here, the route continues along Singapore Speedway 2, entering Gardens by the Bay. The ramp at this spot was modified in style to no longer have a block strip, and the little ramps along the forward-moving conveyor belts and the ramp leading to the Helix Bridge were pulled out. Underneath, barriers now seal off the road behind. Yet another ramp disappeared at the end of the bridge. After getting back on the road, part of the street circuit at the float, drivers turn left towards the Art Science Museum, jumping to another point along the Singapore Speedway 3 route. The long ramp with a dash panel was replaced by a glide ramp, with the side barriers taken away. Over the playfield, 3 updrafts, instead of the one from Tour, guide racers over the building. 3 options open up. Turn left onto the lower roof of the Marina Bay Sands, drop down to the waterfront promenade, or remain airborne to go through 3 new boost rings that are similar to Singapore Speedway 3T. Assessing the left path first, the rooftop now features 3 dash panels. Lots of 3s here, eh? At the end, the yellow ramp leading to ground level was removed. Barriers below the Art Science Museum were placed for the lower path to prevent sneaking into the back streets, while the sidesteppers along the walkway were replaced by 2 Goomba towers. It's possible to skip all of this in 200cc with a shortcut from the rightmost draft to the peninsula opposite the deck, but it requires some boost power and controls, so it's difficult to pull off. All paths converge at the deck and ramp, both of which were enlarged. The peninsula on the other side no longer has the circus barrel, and the side barriers in the spot were removed too. However, other barriers were placed nearby. Drivers go through Chinatown again and head back to Esplanade Bridge, completing the race. Wow, that was quite a lot, lah. But we still have the aesthetic changes to address. There are the general lighting, texture, colorization, and spectator differences, of course, and the minimap was rotated by 90 degrees again, but it now shows the shape of the Art Science Museum. Above, the clouds seem altered, with more prominent stars and a now full moon in the brighter evening sky, and below, banners everywhere wave in the breeze. At the pole position, the lane line amidst the starting grid was erased. Just ahead on the right, the traffic signal was rotated slightly to better face oncoming traffic. And at the left bend, aero barriers along the curb were removed. The cannon fuse now burns, feeling even more animated. The lights of the Marina Bay Sands across the water have a different arrangement on the left tower, while the other two towers have inverted lights compared to before. We also see the Ferris wheel, the Singapore Flyer, now spinning, and the blimp no longer has Tour in the logo. The red arrow sign at the end of the infinity pool was pulled out, like some others in the course. See which you can spot. At the float, the audience disappeared from the aqua seating, and the windows behind the grandstand changed from yellow to light blue. On the second lap, we see that the color scheme and chevron arrangement of the barrier in Chinatown by the Buddha Tooth Relic Temple were altered. The brick road switched to a cobblestone too. Some food carts now have smoke or steam coming from them. Sidesteppers serving as fresh crabs seem to have disappeared from this food cart and by the table, much like the promenade earlier. Where did they all go? Further ahead, the distinct tile pattern at the One Fullerton Mall is just random and subtle now, but the water effects here are improved overall, with colored light coming from below the fountain in the latest version, even if the hue is wrong sometimes. The lower roof of the Marina Bay Sands and the passageway interior were made as transparent as the water. Certain trim on the walls inside appear to be wood now, but the floor tiles look just like those across the bay. Beyond the line starting lap 3, the conveyor belts were restyled to be dot matrix with no bands. The back of the Marina Bay Sands now has lights on and off, similar to the front. Just before Helix Bridge, the tiles to the left also are like those from One Fullerton. The steps onto the bridge itself produce a rocking motion when driving on them, which looks different, but it doesn't affect gameplay. Sadly, the Helix shape has fewer colors now and doesn't cycle through them anymore. On the Art Science Museum, the rear arrows were wiped off and the gray arrows on the other side were painted red. Once again, the tiles for the promenade were switched to that same texture. At the end of this, the arrow barriers received a good mix-up like earlier, and both an arrow field and an MKTV van were placed behind them. However, the water-filled barricades were pushed further to the back. The planks on the deck became much smaller, but at least they're not more tiles. Finally, the arrow barrier near the finish line became a standard barrier. Could we be done? Kanlo! Like the visuals of the course, the music is exciting. It's a type of dance, perhaps synth pop, with Southeast Asian flair, suitably producing the feeling of racing in a futuristic city. As one of the few tracks with vocals, this one seems to be welcoming racers to Singapore, with the possible Mandarin word for newcomer, Xinren. There are two variations of the theme, one when racing around most of Marina Bay, and one while in Chinatown specifically. The original normal variant serves as a foundation, featuring plucked arpeggios and a synth lead in the A section playing a pentatonic, 5-note, scale that many associate with China. Breaking free of that limitation, the B section takes inspiration from jazz, while presenting like airy electronica in a more Western chromatic style. The lo-fi in the long bridge builds up to the return to the A section. So-sui! The Chinatown variation layers instruments on the bass, including Chinese percussion, shamisen, sheng, or sona, and a violin called an arhu. Love it. The arrangement of the normal variant goes stronger with the dance beat, with some synthy riser and faller effects, but no lo-fi is present. Instead, the samples serve that purpose. Very shiok. The arrangement of the Chinatown variant follows the same alteration strategy, sounding crisp but a bit less punchy, yet the bridge has some interesting new runs. As they say, variety is the spice of life. And that's about it for all changes we found in Tour Singapore Speedway. It seems to be one of the most visually stunning and musically exhilarating city tracks yet, being smooth and refined with just the right balance of experiences. But what do you think? Have you found any notable changes that we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Booster Course Wave 4 for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and other things Nintendo too. Thanks for watching. Until next time, 再见.